Welcome back to the 128 KB podcast. We are back once again due to lack of popular demand for your dose of all things gaming this week.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. And rather than talking about something topical or news, because let's face it, there is none.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to take you down a trip down memory lane.
Yes. And well, we've already covered what we think is our best gaming consoles.
Ooh, this is like part two.
Yeah. This is part two, isn't it? So you haven't seen that one.
The second chapter of our unwanted opinions.
Yes.
The value of none.
Yes.
So this week, I want to talk about the most disappointing console releases of all time.
Nice. And there's been a few, isn't there?
Yeah, and more than just releases, that's just a title. It's what you found to be the most disappointing game consoles / handhelds, because I know you're pedantic about that.
Yeah.
In your gaming history.
Yeah. So for us personally, really,
Yeah.
what we kind of had gripes with and whatever.
I've got a couple of doozies.
Yeah. I've got some as well, and one that might, some people might not even ever have heard of.
Wow, okay. And there could be various reasons for not liking these things, from performance to lack of titles to, I'm looking at you, PS5.
I was just about to say, are you talking about the PS5?
Or just plain how it looks. And that's where I'm going to start my little journey.
Yeah.
Is number one on my list is, or I suppose number 3 on my list.
Oh, number 3. You've got 3.
Yeah, I've got a top 3. Is
2 in my mind.
the PS1.
The actual PS. When we're not talking PlayStation 1.
No.
You're talking PS1.
PS1.
Because some people don't realise when you say PS1.
Yeah, I know. Very, very important distinction in my life. That is.
Yeah.
When the PlayStation
Yep.
released,
Yeah.
just PlayStation.
Yeah, the straight up. The Nintendo PlayStation, you mean, yeah?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. It was, it changed my life. It was the most groundbreaking console of its time.
Absolutely. Yeah, that changed me too. My
Yeah.
brother had one.
Yeah.
Oh, it was insane.
Insane. And then a few years into its console life, as a lot of manufacturers still do, as we were talking about the other day with PS5 Pro rumored to come out.
Yeah.
They released like a halfway version, a Slim or a Pro. Sony released the PS1, which was like the slimmed down micro PlayStation.
It was tiny in comparison.
Absolutely, like half the size.
Like if we're talking like the PlayStation, the original, was like the size of an Xbox.
Yeah.
And then it went down to like a bit bigger than a Walkman.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, it was tiny.
It was like a pebble shaped.
It was rounded.
It was rounded.
It was barely bigger than the disc.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was like just a bit bigger than a Walkman, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just enough to put your controller inserts on the front.
And my reason for disliking this is just entirely superficial.
Yeah.
There's no reason.
So just the aesthetics.
I just hated how it looked.
Yeah.
Everything about me hated how it looked. I thought it looked like the Fisher-Price PlayStation.
Yeah, see, I kind of thought it was cute because, and it's probably the sort of Nintendo nerd in me, the
very Nintendo.
PlayStation was grey.
Yes.
And whereas the PS1 was that kind of NES off-white.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it was like a bit creamy, or unless that's just because mine's old and that's how I'm remembering seeing it, because I still have my PS1. Yeah, I literally still have my PS1.
Yeah. The PlayStation was grey, although they did release coloured versions later on.
Oh, did they?
It was square and angular.
Yes. Big.
And it felt like an adult's console. And I was, I guess, a young teenager, maybe like 12, probably something like that when it was released. It was like, it felt really grown up.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah, it was the cool kid, wasn't it? Yeah.
And then the PS1 came out and it was like, oh, here's like the Nintendo version.
Yeah.
And I was trying to escape all that. I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, it's like this weird pebbly thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
in my head, this is really stupid how it was. The PlayStation was the perfect successor to the Sega Mega Drive / Genesis.
Yeah.
And the PS1 didn't fit in with that.
No, yeah.
So it's entirely superficial why I disliked it.
Very different. See, for me, I actually enjoyed that because probably because I was a bit younger, and also I had no room I had this tiny little TV in my room, which I had I don't even know what was plugged into it, but the stand it was on was tiny.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have fit a PlayStation on there, really. So the PS1 was just like small enough to actually fit on this stupid little stand with my tiny, whatever it was, like 16-inch TV or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it was this tiny little thing. So that all like played in together. So I kind of liked it, and I kind of liked the off-white color.
Yeah, no.
And the big like circular like power button, and then the flip the lid button. I thought it was kind of cool. I still got it. I haven't used it in a long time.
Yeah, but like now looking back, I think it's cool.
Yeah.
But I just remember at the time being sorely disappointed by it.
Yeah.
What would be your third most disappointing console?
Oh,
I'm setting you up. You might not have three.
Well, I'm going to go purely based on frustration then, because you were saying about our own like personal issues and gripes, right?
This is totally not like, there's no objection to this.
This is going to shock you.
Yeah.
PS Vita.
PS Vita?
Yep. And you know why?
It's like the greatest handheld that never
amazing.
happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. And I've had 2 or 3 actually. But I loved it. And I still love it. But at the time, it really frustrated me because I was at university. I had no money. I think I even sold my PlayStation 3 to buy one, right? And then when I went to buy one, I didn't do enough research into like, because I was just like, yeah, a handheld, you know, I'm at uni, I'm all over the place. I want a PS Vita, you know, like that's great. I don't have to wait to come back to my house to like play it, you know. Where all my flatmates were always playing on the PlayStation. So I was like, I can just, if they're watching football or whatever, I can be playing because I don't care, you know? So I was like, yes, PS Vita, went to the shop and they milked me for every penny because all the stupid proprietary stuff that the PS Vita had, like it didn't have a USB port or anything. It had its own proprietary cable to like charge it, as well as data transfer and stuff like that. They had their own proprietary memory cards, which they charged a fortune for. The games were really expensive as well. Like everything was so expensive. And I think I bought the system with like 3 games and it cost me so much money. And I remember getting like, I was annoyed because I was like, now I have no money to buy games. Yeah. And granted, I had a few. I think I bought 3 games. I bought a bundle back when they actually used, I don't even know if they do bundles at launch now, but they did back in the day, right? And I got this bundle of stuff, but then I had to buy the memory card extra and all that stuff. And I loved it and I really enjoyed it, but it took me ages before I could then go on to the shop, like the digital shop, because you could download the games, you know, and I got like Medieval from PlayStation 1 because they had the PlayStation 1 classics and stuff on there. And I was so ready, like before I went and bought it, to, I'm going to buy this game, I'm going to get that game, I'm going to get this. And it took me months before I could then afford to actually get stuff that I wanted to play. So it was disappointing.
The frustration is still so palpable for me of the PS Vita. Just when you like talk about, they had the PS1 classics on, you're like, my God, it is everything that we need from Sony right now.
It's
still
what Project Q needs to be.
OLED screen.
I know.
Backwards compatibility, like download games and just play it on the go.
And they were cheap as well, really.
For what it is.
It's amazing. It was
amazing. So ahead of its time and so not supported properly. It's criminal.
And then you know what frustrated me was when they changed it and brought the new version out.
Downgraded it.
Yeah. And they brought out I can't remember what the modeling was called. Was it the 2000? I feel like the PS Vita 1000 was the OLED model. I might be wrong. Correct me in the comments. Or, you know, if you're listening, then just shout it out in your car or whatever.
Scream at it.
Yeah. Go, Andy, right, why are you getting this wrong? But anyway, so the second one they brought out, which was the 2000, which was the Slim, essentially, was better in every way. You know, it had a USB port now. So it had a micro USB and you could charge it with any cable or whatever. Like there was other improvements that were just like, this is great. But then the biggest downgrade, they took the OLED out of it and they put an LCD screen in it.
It was definitely a price thing.
Oh yeah. It was cheaper. But everything else about the console, they changed the design. Like the look and everything was different. Like everything just felt good about it, other than the fact that they got away with the OLED. And it's like, there's so many cool colors in it as well. You can get blue ones and orange ones and all these crazy Japanese colors and stuff. Everything about that was great, but the lack of OLED screen really frustrated me. And obviously being at uni, like I said, I didn't have any money. I ended up having to sell my collection of Vita games and all that. And it was only, a couple of years ago, whenever it was, that I went back and rebought it all. Yeah. And I had to make that decision even then, a couple of years ago. Like, do I buy the original, which I know has an OLED screen, which is beautiful, or do I buy the more modern one, which has a USB port, probably have better longevity, but then have a worse screen. So
it's pretty tricky.
Yeah, I actually just went for the 1000. You know, I went for the OLED model because I was like, that was the pinnacle.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, even though it was frustrating, you know, that's what I did. So I've got that now, and it's amazing. It's such a good console. Yeah,
so ahead of its time, and it is what we need right now from PlayStation with the Project Q, and we're not going to get.
No. So what's your second?
This one still makes me angry just thinking about it. I'm developing a bit of Twitch, I think.
You're going to stream on Twitch, you said?
No. It was my one and only foray into the dark side.
Oh, no, you're not talking about the dreaded X.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. The Xbox 360.
Oh
my God.
I loved it when it came out.
Joe, I loved it. Loved it. I loved the idea of it. I loved it so much, I ended up getting 4. Not all at the same time.
You're making a supercomputer. You had them all wired in together. Like 8K gaming.
I was doing my one-man LAN parties.
Yeah. 8K gaming back in the mid-2000s.
Yeah. Just a Power 1 display.
Yeah.
Right. The Xbox 360, it's almost number 1 on my list for most disappointing releases because it offered so much. It was so cheap for...
It really was.
It was so cheap at the time. And the hardware was so good.
Yeah.
It was like an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah.
It really was. I loved how it looked.
I was going to say, I have to give it credit. It's one of the best looking consoles.
Still.
I really like the aesthetics.
I love that lime green thing.
Yeah.
I loved that kind of curved but square look to it. It was so cool.
Controller was good.
Controller was amazing.
In comparison to the Xbox, you know, the original Xbox where it had that dinner plate.
Yeah.
Like the Xbox 360 had like the first real controller.
Yeah, it was such a huge step up. And it was so much more affordable than what else was out at the same time? PS3.
PS3, yeah. It was a year before the PS3, I think it came out.
It bridged that time, didn't it?
Yeah. It was around that time.
2006, 2007.
It would have been Wii era. Yeah. Nintendo Wii era.
It was just so much that it promised, but it just kept dying.
Yeah.
And not like switch off, like dead, Red Ring of Death.
Yeah.
Those of you that are old enough to watch this video will know what we're talking about. I forget the exact number. I'm sure it's 4 that I had and 4 that died.
Yeah. I would love to see what the percentage of all made died at. Do you know what I mean?
Such a criminal.
Must have been like 30% of all 360s got Red Ring of Death.
Has to have been.
Because my sister's husband, I remember back near those days, he had that issue, kept dying. And I remember both me and my brother had Xbox 360s, and we were so worried about it because we'd heard all these horror stories. We bought that stupid fan pack that plugged into the power supply.
Yeah.
And then you plug the power supply kettle lead into that, which then I think it had 4 fans on it, and frickin' hell, it was like leaving the Hoover on.
It was like a PS5 starting up.
Yeah. It was like freaking loud, and but it was constant because these fans were just at full power.
It was such a systemic problem that there was pop-up industries and products, but pop-up industries that existed now, you would see phone repair shops.
Yeah, they
those kind of places.
360 repair shops.
100%. I remember really clearly that places that would either fix the Red Ring of Death or mod your Xbox 360 so it wouldn't get it, which is obviously just snake oil. But that's how systemic a problem was. There was an industry that existed to fix it.
Yeah, because we had some dodgy dealer guy in the local market.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Those kind of places.
There's probably still there, but do you know what I mean?
Probably sold phone cases as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, they will now, but back then,
and
it was like that. Yeah, it was like those dodgy guys. You'd go and get your console modded to play cracked discs or whatever, I never did that, but that guy was there and everyone knew if you got Red Ring of Death, you'd go there.
He'll fix it for you.
He'll probably break it even more. But avoid your warranty. But I'm pretty sure mine actually died in the end. And I think that's why I got rid of it.
I remember really quickly, I bought mine from HMV.
Amazing.
Yeah, weird.
Back when they sold games consoles.
In Plymouth, I think it was.
Yes, amazing.
And they didn't even last that long. I would be surprised if it was a month in between.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was gaming a lot at this time. I had a lot of free time apparently. I was playing it a lot. But yeah, month, maybe 6 weeks in between, and then I'll have to go back down to Plymouth, take it in, and then they'll give me another one out from the storeroom.
Were you like setting it up like properly, or did you have like socks on it?
I put it on a pillow,
pair of pads,
surrounded by some duvets, and in direct sunlight.
Yeah, and in an airtight bag.
Yeah. Basically, I set it up in my oven whilst I was cooking dinner.
Yeah.
So that was right, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'd stuff it down the back of my refrigerator, covered in pillows.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with that.
And just saying that, like, we're joking about stuff like that. I think it was Wolfden that actually put his Switch in the oven and left it on for like so long at a certain temperature because Nintendo put out a statement saying, don't play in the heat wave.
Oh,
because it might break the Switch. So he put a Switch in his oven and played it, and it was fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, whereas if you're thinking of Xbox 360, you boil a kettle in the other room and that steam would have blown it up. Do you know what I mean? So
the reflection of the moonlight was enough to overheat it.
That's it.
Yeah, that was beyond disappointing. It still makes me angry thinking about it. The inconvenience. And in the end, when the fourth one went, I was like, I just have my money back, and I went and got a PS3.
Yeah. You went to
eventually.
Yeah. I think mine bricked. I went to uni. I bought a PS3, which was the one that I then ended up selling to buy the Vita. So my second console is another PlayStation handheld.
What?
And it's the PSP, but not the original one, even though I could have major gripes about that because of the UMDs, which was stupid.
PSP's got huge issues.
Like, why would you put a spinning disc in a handheld? Like, that just makes no sense.
It just reminds me of the Discman.
Yes, exactly. But that's not what we're talking about here today. We're talking about the PSP Go, which was the discless PSP.
Right. I'm a big PlayStation fan.
Yeah.
You mentioned this before the show.
Yeah.
And I had completely forgotten that this thing existed. Till you showed me a photo, like, oh yeah, the weird slidey screeny thing.
Yeah.
It's like two-tiered.
It was like based on those like hit phones by like Motorola or whatever at the time. Do you know what I mean? Like where the screen slid up and then you had like a keyboard.
Yeah.
That is what the PSP Go was. It was tiny. It was just a screen that slid up.
Have joysticks, or were they like membranes?
No. It was... The PSP didn't have a joystick. It had a D-pad on the left and then your face buttons on the right. But it did have a little like joystick on the bottom left. So you had the D-pad. So D-pad, little joystick thing, start, select, or select, start, then X, circle, triangle. And
that was it, yeah.
So it had that. But this thing... Like, obviously being a handheld nut, as soon as it came out, I was like, I'm buying that. Yeah. That sounds amazing. No more load times with, battery getting rinsed by spinning a disc up, scratching the UMDs. They always used to scratch.
Awful.
Like, it was terrible. And I thought, this is the future.
Yeah.
Better battery life.
Yeah.
No loading times.
Sounds amazing.
In terms of,
sign me up.
Yeah. And I was like, yes. Bought the thing. And I remember getting it out and was like, oh, this is horribly uncomfortable because it was very, very thin.
Yeah.
Even though it looks quite fat now, it slid up. There was no ergonomics at all. So you're holding like half a pebble in your hands, trying to balance the screen that was protruding at the top.
Very small screen.
Very small. And then it was very cramped. It was all like horrible buttons and stuff. And then it was digital only. So when you think back to whenever that released, which was before 2010, so probably 2007 or 8 or something like that. When that dropped, it was digital media only. So you had to buy all your games from the store online. Bear in mind, I had a PSP with a collection of UMDs. Well, obviously.
And you couldn't transfer.
Couldn't play any of them. No.
It wasn't like it was linked to the network or anything. It's like,
No, you just have to buy it all again. So,
but here's the mad thing: they obviously had the ability to have an account, for this thing to exist. So, so it's possible that you could link your games to what you already own and then let you download it.
Yeah,
but it was obvious that they just did it as a money grab.
Oh yeah, it was a money grab. I mean, it was a good idea when you think about it. Super portable. and again, PSP, PlayStation Portable, like they just made it even more portable. They'd like fix some of the issues that they'd had with the PSP, and it was great. And I actually really enjoyed it at the time. But I remember my first impressions was like, I don't know about this.
These things, the problems with the PSP, which I had big problems.
Yeah.
The Go, which was just a complete train crash. And the problems with the Vita, as in not supporting it properly, it's just got inherent flaws.
Yeah.
Are what make me very, very nervous about the queue.
Yeah.
Very nervous about all the things we're worried about being real.
Well, it's all right with the queue. You don't need to worry about proprietary storage solutions.
Because there's nothing to store.
There's nothing to store. Yeah. You don't have to worry about discs spinning up.
That's true.
Unless you're at home. Because your PlayStation's going to be running.
You need someone to change the disc.
You need someone sat on your sofa watching you play from a distance so that they can change the disc.
And I don't know about you, but when you... The other thing, I'm changing subject completely.
Yeah.
But when you switch your PlayStation on from rest mode, what does your TV do?
I don't know. I haven't even thought about it.
Mine automatically switches to HDMI.
Yeah. It brings up the PlayStation.
It automatically changes.
Even if the PlayStation's off entirely and the TV's off entirely, if I press the PlayStation button, the whole thing will turn on.
Most TVs have like HDMI switching built in, automatic, or power on by HDMI. It's usually an option in the menu.
Yeah.
So remote play turns on the PS5.
Yeah, but only from rest mode, which doesn't make any sense, does it? But, no, it does.
So it needs to be in rest mode.
It needs to be in rest mode.
But does it actually turn the PS5 on?
No, it just wakes from sleep.
That's what I mean, though. If you wake your PS5 from sleep now...
Yes.
By pressing a button on the controller...
Yes.
Your HDMI switches on.
Yes.
And the TV turns over.
Oh, so what you're saying is...
If I've got a Project Q, remote play...
It's going to be displaying on your screen at the same time. Yeah.
And someone else has got TV, which is the whole point.
It's going to bypass the...
So the TV's just going to switch over.
I'm sure they'll probably release an update that will say if it's being played on a remote device. But how would it do that? Because it's the TV that senses the power.
Yes.
That then turns it on. Maybe you just have to turn that off. So you'll have to manually
switch the HDMI
on when you're at home and you want to play.
Which kind of defeats one of the great things about HDMI.
Unplug your HDMI cable.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a faff. And that's rubbish. I hadn't thought about that.
I hadn't even thought about that just then.
Yeah. So, there was issues.
I can't decide if we're agreeing on number one or not.
I think we were.
Are we coming together? Unlike the greatest concert of all time, where I had this fantastic idea in my head. It's like, I'm going to save this and not tell him. And I know that's going to be his number one.
But it wasn't.
But it wasn't at all. I was like, damn it. Yeah. Well, I think across the whole world, there's a few honorable mentions before I say number one.
Yeah.
PlayStation 5 can go... I love it more than I love the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
And I loved the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
I love everything about what the PlayStation 5 could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is so frustrating. It's so big.
Yeah.
It's so loud.
Yeah.
It's so devoid of decent games. Yeah. I'm getting on my horse. Yeah. I'm going to ride it. Where are the current generation titles?
I know.
Still. And we're talking about rumours of a PS5 Pro coming out next year, which will be 4 years into its life, and we're still waiting for proper current generation titles. I love it. Please don't get me wrong. I'm a massive PlayStation fan, but it is very frustrating. That's my honourable mention.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it has been frustrating. Like, it feels like it's just never actually kicked off yet. But I think it's because we've got such a being up on it over like why the PS4 is still relevant right now. Like when we feel like they should have discontinued that like pretty soon after.
Yeah.
But
there is an argument to say that there's always been a crossover between PlayStation titles.
Yeah, but not this long, surely. Like
and there was, in my mind, there was always like headline titles that made you need to get the next generation.
Yeah, it was only available on the new console.
Or the difference was so huge. It's like, oh, you'd be stupid to get it on the old one.
Yeah.
Anyway, That was my honourable mention. Have you got any honourable mentions before I go to number one?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. There is, but I can't think.
Okay, so number one. And I think universally, across the whole world, there can only be one.
Yes. Yeah.
Most disappointing console release of all time.
The Wii U. Which I didn't even know what it was.
No one knew what it was. I had no idea. Do you know, this was my framing in gaming at the time. The Nintendo Wii came out.
Yes.
Before, obviously.
Yeah.
And in my head,
yep.
all I saw were the nunchucky motion controls and fat people dancing in front of their telly to get fit. I'm brutally honest. That's all I saw.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, Nintendo have just aiming at the Brain Train family thing. Yeah,
which they were, to be honest.
And that's Nintendo.
Yeah.
And the Wii U came out.
Yep.
And I had like a balance board and stupid stuff and this weird screen control.
Thing.
I was like, oh, it's more old people stuff. Yeah. That's literally my framing at the time. I was like, I won't even look at it. It's just a tablet controller for the Wii.
That's exactly what I thought it was. Because of the naming system, I genuinely thought it was an accessory.
Yeah.
So I completely skipped it. Didn't even realize. Like, I just thought it's a black Wii on its side with a tablet.
Yeah.
With the same kind of random games.
Yeah,
I'm
like
good.
Family games.
Do you know what I mean?
You can play Wii Sports. That looks kind of fun if we've got a party on or something.
Yeah. But it didn't make sense to me. Like, it didn't feel new.
No.
It felt like they just rehashed the Wii and put a screen in your hands. And I was like, right, okay. I didn't see any like advertisement for any new like next gen stuff. Like you said, it was just more of the like, here's another fitness thing. Here's some other random stuff. And I was just like, I've always loved Nintendo. I've always bought their consoles, always. But at that point in time, I think I was at uni. Mm-hmm. I was scraping together enough money to buy freaking Vita games. So
getting ripped off by Sony.
Yeah, exactly. So I couldn't afford to buy a Wii U. And at the time, I didn't want one because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, I bought one. Like, I got one eventually, recently.
That's the interesting thing with this as being the most disappointing release, because in subsequent years, you reflect upon the Wii U. Yeah. You bought one 2 years ago.
Yeah, a year or two ago. Yeah.
You reflect upon it and go, actually, if we fully understood this at the time.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
There's some amazing games on it.
Amazing. Yeah.
The handheld controller thing is basically the precursor to the Switch.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's kind of genius.
Because it sounds funny. This is what the Project Q is.
It's exactly what the Project Q is.
Is the Wii part of the U.
Yeah.
Would be your telly. You could spin the disc up, and when you loaded it up on the screen, it literally said, "Do you want to boot on the TV or do you want it handheld only?" So you could boot the thing into the the handheld bit, the tablet, but you could only be so many meters away from it before it lost signal.
Yeah.
So basically like a Project Q if it's on the same Wi-Fi network.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so you could be sat in the corner playing whatever you want to play while someone else was using the TV if you wanted to. So like, actually it was genius.
Yes.
They just marketed it absolutely terribly.
Entirely wrong.
And it was a really good idea. The games were fun. There was some cracking games. I mean, most of them have been ported over to the Switch.
Yes.
You've got Breath of the Wild. Yeah. There's so many Wii U games that are now on Switch that people just think are Switch games, but actually they were Wii U games.
And because of how it was framed pretty much in its first 2 years, I'd say, 18 months, 2 years, I didn't pay any attention to it at all.
No.
I didn't even look at it. And then when the Switch comes out and you're seeing loads of these awesome Wii U games being ported over, you go, wow, I missed out on loads.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of bad packaging.
Yes, bad branding, bad representation, bad marketing.
Even now, Mario Kart.
Yeah.
It's the same game still.
Yeah, it's the same one. Yeah, Mario Kart 8 was a Wii U game.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild, Wii U game.
Breath of the Wild, that blows my mind that it was a Wii U game still.
Yeah.
But
and let's just add really quickly, it had the online store.
Yes.
Where you could buy all the old retro stuff. So it's not like the Switch now where you have to pay a subscription and get one game every 9 years that they drip out.
No.
You could log in.
Which game? What game do you want? You could just buy it.
And you can buy that individual Game Boy Advance games. Fine.
Yeah.
Just search for the game you want. download it.
Why is that not an option?
Exactly.
On
And
Switch Online.
it's backwards compatible with the Wii. All your Wii games worked. You could download, Wii games as well if you wanted to buy new ones.
And do you know what the madness is? I know all of this now.
Mm.
I know everything that it could have been.
Yes.
If I had engaged with it at the time.
Absolutely.
And yet, if you show me a Wii U box now, I will not be excited.
No.
I still look at it, and my emotional reaction is still exactly the same.
Yeah, what's that? Yeah.
Not.
But it's funny.
It's not like when I look at a GameCube and I go, "That looks cool."
Yeah. That just fills me with so much nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, like you said, with the Wii U, it's just like, oh, there's that addition to the Wii. But it flopped terribly. I think they only sold like 8 million units or something stupid.
When you compare that to the Switch, it just doesn't even make sense.
What is it, like 165 million or something now? It's absolutely mental.
Still selling really well.
So yeah, it was an absolute failure, but it set the path to the Switch. And that's the thing, when the Switch came out, because I totally didn't even think of the Wii U, the Switch was so like, wow, this thing's genius. You can play handheld, you can play docked, you could do all this stuff on it. And then later on when I actually bothered to look at the Wii U, I went, it's exactly the same. It's just now.
You can see the progression.
Yeah. You can see the progression. You're like, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was the biggest disappointment because I was well excited for the next Nintendo drop. And then when it happened to be the Wii U and I didn't understand what it was, I just, like you said, I dismissed it.
It's funny because, like I say, my reaction to it still hasn't changed, even though I know all of the stuff about it now and I know all the things I missed. Really should make me more open-minded when new things are released, but I'm still as stupid.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that it was a disappointing console.
No.
It was just really misunderstood.
Yeah.
And that's really frustrating.
Yeah, it's sad, the good thing is Nintendo picked it back up with the Switch.
Didn't
and
they
picked up and ran, and it is done phenomenally well. I think way better than they ever anticipated.
Must be. And make no mistakes, Nintendo is a juggernaut of a company. But so was Sega.
Yeah.
And Sega's bad choices with consoles put it into what is now basically a publisher of games.
Of Sonic.
Yeah.
They make Sonic.
They make Sonic games that everyone hates. The Wii U could have killed Nintendo.
Oh, absolutely.
If the Switch had the same bad packaging, basically.
Yeah. And do you think GameCube was a failure? Even though it was amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. That was a failure, really.
Yeah.
Then the Wii kicked them back up because that was phenomenal. Then they tried to ride the back of the Wii with the Wii U, failed so hard.
So on that pattern.
So it's up, down. So on that pattern, you're saying the next one's going to suck.
Is the Switch 2 going to suck?
Maybe.
I think they've established enough as if they keep the same packaging, right? The same communication of the idea, right? But if they change too much, which Nintendo are well known for.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows?
We'll see.
If you've got to the deep end with us, make sure you rate the podcast. It really does mean a lot. Spotify, iTunes, wherever it is you are, just leave us a little 5-star rating. It's the only rating you can leave, so don't look at anything else. And if you're on YouTube, you know what to do. The buttons are below.
Watch these videos.
Press them. I always forget to say that. Watch these videos. Do those things.
Just do everything.
And until the next time, we'll see you next time.
Bye.